What up, what up, what up, what up? It's me, L Teddy 27, Angry Teacher Chronicles. We are back, y'all. It is David McMahon, season 1, episode 2. And so excited. Love the episode again. Shots out with my number 2. Shots out to all my Deuce Clubs out there. Deuce Clubs. My fellow Deuce Clubs. Anyway, let's get right to it. David's mom comes home. It's like real early in the morning. Who meets her at the door? JG. Listen, y'all. JG done got up early in the morning. Like most little kids, JG is here for it. JG is excited about something. The mom is asking, why is he up? And David is up like, listen, he woke me up, okay? He's all excited. And we find out JG is going to his grandpa's house. So JG is all excited. You could tell he loves his grandpa's house. And so David's mom is like, and so when JG goes to get his stuff, he goes and runs over there. And you see David and the mom simultaneously say, stop running. To show that as much as the mom thinks she's raising JG, David is really the one raising JG. I caught that very early on. We caught that last episode. So anyway, David has to drop JG's dad, JG off to his grandpa's house. Grandpa stays in Overtown. And if I recall correctly, I think either on my live Sunday or Saturday this past weekend, we gave a real abbreviated recap of the history of Miami. And in that recap, we talked a little bit about the neighborhood or the section called Overtown. And it is now it's the hood, but it used to be a vibrant neighborhood for blacks back in the days of about the early 1900s up to about the 50s or so, 40s and 50s, up to about the 40s and 50s. Definitely when they started to, in the 50s, when they started to tear Overtown to build I-95. Anyway, so he has to take his brother over to Overtown to stay with his granddad, spend the night with his granddad. It takes them about 3 buses because Overtown is very far. Where I'm from is farther than Overtown, but still coming from Homestead to Overtown, that's a long way. And so they got to catch 3 buses. The mom gives them enough money to catch the bus and make his ass back there and make his ass back home. So David, on their way to the bus stop, David is trying to avoid the dope boys. So David takes an alternate longer route and JG catches on it. And JG is kind of like ragging on David about, not being more, or I should say less afraid. Because JG picks up on David trying to avoid these dope boys. And JG is a whole ass thug at like 9, 10 years old. Just a whole ass thug. Anyway, so they get to the bus stop. Bus is coming. David sees the bus coming. And the bus gets there and David gets on. Who tries to flag David down because he's down the block trying to catch the bus? Dope boy with the red braids. I think his name is Ray. Yes, it's Ray. So Ray tells David, hold the bus. David wants no parts of Ray. David gets on that bus and doesn't say a damn thing to the bus driver. Ray, right before the door closes, Ray sticks his hand in there and the doors open and Ray gets on the bus. David is like, So then after that, we see where it's like David gets, JG gets to Overtown. They're walking. Ray is following them. And David is like, why are you following us? Don't you got somewhere to be? And so he was like, nah, I told you, I ain't going to leave you alone. So he tries to tell JG about the history of Overtown. JG was like, oh, I already know. My brother told me. And Ray's like, oh, your brother's a smart dude. Here's what we find out, that not only JG's dad is dead, we also get to confirm that Sky is Ray's dad. And so Sky, not that Sky, Ray, yeah, Ray, y'all see I almost got lost with the people. Ray and JG has this connection. He was like, yeah, that's something else we got in common. They got this whole handshake and all of this. And said, because both our dads dead. Matter of fact, all of our dads are dead, is dead. And he looks at David so as to allude to either one of two things. Either one, Sky is actually David's dad, or two, David's dad is someone else who's also dead. So after that, um, JG, we get to JG's grandpa's house. And JG's grandpa is an ornery, crotchety, cantankerous old guy. Like a lot of old Miami men. They're the whole get off my lawn guys. That's what they are. Um, Now, Ray done followed them the whole way. Ray is forcing the issue. Ray is like, oh no, I don't care how you feel, David. Oh, we gonna get connected. Oh, you're not going to ignore me. And he's forcing the issue. So all three of them get to JG's granddad's house. Ray knows his granddad. Calls him Reverend, whatever his name was. And so there's this whole thing. They get to the house. JG is there having a good time. He loves his granddad because he gets food. And they got air conditioner and they got all of the luxuries that JG can't get at home. So naturally, a child is going to love going there. Hell, I would too. So David tries to leave, and before he tried to leave, there was this interaction where you see once again Ray is forcing the issue. They're like picking up stuff off the kitchen floor, putting it back in the refrigerator. Ooh, sorry y'all, it's late. And Ray is still trying to push the issue between the two of them being close. So after that, David tries to leave without Ray. He wants no parts of Ray. Ray catches David trying to leave. And he was like, nah, bruh, where you going? So they get outside. And Ray pretty much blackmails David. Said, listen, you fucked up at the goddamn lookout. You owe me. Now, either we can square this up here, and you can hang out with me all day until we go to the jam. Put a bookmark in that. We're going to talk about what a jam is later. Or you can go on home, and we'll square up back at the Ville. And I know you don't want that. So, of course, what does David do? Okay, I got you. So, because he was like, listen, my mom made me promise I would get home before her. Ray ain't trying to hear it. You owe. So, Ray's going to use that to his advantage to hang out with David. So, they do hang out. You see them hanging out. And Ray is forcing the issue. David starts to go along with it. Like, they're out looking at this girl, and they're practicing on cat calls. And Ray is coaching David through how to do the little cat calls and everything. So it was this real bonding moment that he was longing to have with David. So David had mentioned earlier when he first talked about why you following us that Ray had this car. Don't you got a car and stuff like that? And he was like, the car is at my uncle's house. So they get to Ray's uncle's house and the car is there, but it's wrecked out. And so Ray talked about how the car got wrecked out on I-95, him trying to race, and talked about how because his dad, Sky, gave him that car for his birthday. And him and David have this whole conversation about how Sky was so special to both of them. And Ray keeps saying, I know you understand, I know you understand. David is you can tell he wants to leave, but he doesn't have a choice. So Ray talked about, how his car got messed up in a wreck and how when he came home, his dad was so angry. And he tells David, listen, as much as I know he looked out for you and y'all were close, you were his son, and he only reserved that level of anger from me. You never got to see him that angry. And there's that interaction between the two. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, it's late. So then after that, you could tell that Ray deeply misses his dad, Sky. He's longing for his dad. And so I guess his mechanism of dealing with that is to take on someone else and, be that father figure for that person like his father was for him. And so Ray's uncle comes home. Ray's uncle comes home and he's there. There's this light skinned guy in the car with Ray's uncle. So Ray's uncle gets out, goes with Ray in the house. Light skinned dude gets out, and him and David have this like standoff where they're staring at each other. Now, y'all, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I told y'all last week I hate being this guy. Fuck it, I'm going down the rabbit hole. So, sorry, my eyes are burning, y'all. David goes and have this Mexican standoff with this light skinned dude. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to that, and you see them deeply like staring into each other's souls, and there's this whole "I'm sizing you up" dichotomy to it. There's also this whole covert, subtle, dare I say, homoerogenous moment. And I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. I felt that way about Starion and David. Now there's this other light-skinned dude that I feel this way about David with. And y'all, I feel like my eyes are burning, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't know, and I'm in the rabbit hole, full scale into the rabbit hole, y'all. David is a dark skinned guy. Dark skinned guy. There's the whole dark skinned people. You see a lot of dark skinned people liking light skinned people. And so I felt like that with David and Starion. I feel like this again with David and this light skinned dude that was with Ray's uncle. And we never got to see what this was about. Y'all let's get down in the comments about this and argue about what was this standoff that they were having. I don't know. We didn't get into it. Maybe it'll be divulged later, but I just don't know what that was about. And I didn't want to go back down that rabbit hole of figuring out what it was, whether or not it was homoerotic, but who knows. Anyway, so Ray goes in there, he's talking with his uncle. The uncle is upset with him about the fact that y'all almost got caught by the police. He feels like Ray is sloppy. Ray is good, but he tends to be sloppy and not, make sure everything is taken care of. So you can tell the uncle is about to go in on Ray about the police and the fact that they almost got caught by the police, and he's about to go in. And so David is feeling some kind of way. Eventually David says, fuck it. And David blurts out, it was me. He admitted to doing it. And so Ray's uncle like immediately gravitates toward David and just says, see, this is what I'm talking about. He loves David's intelligence and his intellect. And so they started to have this conversation about, how to handle it. And he was like, you work with the police. And so David says, if you don't have nothing to hide, why are you running? And so Ray's uncle is immediately like, see, that's what I'm talking about. And so he goes and has this conversation with David. He's trying to get David to sell drugs. And David says, he talks about, David tells him about the role that Sky had with him and the fact that Sky didn't want him to sell drugs. And Ray's uncle is trying to dismiss that. But just as, Ray's uncle was turning up the pressure and the fire to get David to agree to sell drugs for him, this music starts in the background. And who is it? It's Uncle Al. Now, let me hip y'all too. I told y'all to put a bookmark in jams, okay? As a Miami native, I absolutely love and adore the fact that they paid homage to Uncle Al. Bass and booty music, we call it booty music in Miami. It's officially called bass as a genre of music. It's called bass music. Anyway, a lot of people identify Uncle Luke as one of the pioneers of bass music with Two Live Crew, and even before Two Live Crew, and songs like Throw That D and so forth. But if you are from Miami, one of the true pioneers of bass music is Uncle Al. And I would give you some homework and tell you go look up DJ Uncle Al, A-L. DJ Uncle Al, and listen to his music. That music right there is the music of Miami. It's authentically Miami. It was created in Miami. And even you can go and pull up on YouTube some of his jam sessions where he would like, because they had this underground radio station and whatever. Anyway, let me tell you what a jam is in Miami. I grew up on 15th Avenue and 68 Terrace. Uncle Al had, DJ Uncle Al was a part of this group that they called the Sugar Hill DJs. They were called the Sugar Hill DJs because they lived in the projects in Liberty City on 71st Street and 15th Avenue. I stayed on 68 Terrace and 15th Avenue. And so him and the other DJs that were part of Sugar Hill DJs, they all grew up in Sugar Hill projects. So what a jam was is they would take about 40 or 50 speakers and they would line them up in the middle of the street. So it would span the whole width of the street, and it would be about 10, 15 feet high, because they would have the big, like 4-foot tall speakers. Then they would stack another row of them on top of that. Then they would have the tweakers or whatever they call the high-pitched speakers on top of them. And so it was called a jam. And the music would be played. It would be bass music. And one of the things about Miami good bass music is the DJs always talk over the music. They add their own lyrics to the music as they talk over it. And so Uncle Al would do this on the weekends, like on a Friday night or a Saturday night. You knew you was going to be up all night because they was going to have the wall. It was called the wall of speakers. And the wall of speakers would be put out and you would have a jam. Everybody just come into the streets and you just dancing all night long, having a good time. The whole neighborhood is out there, and it was a jam, and that's what a jam was. And even if you didn't want to be a part of the jam and you wanted to go to sleep, the speakers were so loud, they might almost shatter your windows. It was real. So you had to go be a part of the jam, whether or not you wanted to. That's what a jam is. And they have been talking about going to this jam. And so the jam was a reason for Ray to help out David, and he got David out of, and I just gave y'all a little history lesson on Miami music, but he got David out of his uncle's house before he could agree to being, one of the dope boys and selling drugs. So he gets him out of there, and he's still being this big brother, and he goes and he says, you still got some stuff to do for me. So he gives David a drop. He gives him drugs to take back to the boys in the Ville so he can make this drop and they can take those drugs and sell them. So David, and he lets David go home. David goes home. David gets on his first bus, and the girl on the bus is like, what is that smell? Somebody in here smell like a pound of weed. So David's looking in his book bag and he sees all of this weed. It's a bunch of weed and some other drugs, and he wants to know what the other drugs are. So he writes the name of them down. I guess he's going to go and research them later. And when he gets off the bus, he doesn't want to get caught naturally with these drugs, perhaps go to jail. So he goes to this corner store, this drug store, to get some bags and get some stuff to try to hide the scent of the weed. And so I felt like he was going to try to shoplift at first, but then he rethinks it and he uses his last bit of money to buy these plastic bags. I don't know if it was Ziploc bags or garbage bags, but bags to wrap up the weed in. So he pays for it. He goes in the bathroom. He wraps up the weeds to try to mask the smell. He had bought some spray and was spraying the spray in there, in his book bag as well. And then he leaves. goes to the bus stop, and he sees the same girl that talked about the smell. And he says, "Can I use your phone? Because my phone died. Because his mama had been trying to call him all day, and the mama couldn't get him, and his phone died." The girl was like, "I don't play by my phone." Da, 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 so she wouldn't give him the phone. So she made him. She called him on speakerphone. Heard his mom on speakerphone, and his mom said, "Make sure you have your ass home before me." We find out that he's at Dadeland bus stop. Dadeland is about 20 miles or so from Homestead. Okay, David ain't got no money for the bus, so he has to foot it. I told you it's like 20 miles, and it's probably more than that from Dadeland to Homestead. He got to foot it, so he starts walking. He's tired, and David always seems to be sweating. All episode season 1, all episode this season. I'm not season 1, episode 1, and all episodes 2. David be sweating like Whitney Houston in a concert, okay? All day, every day, just as musty as he want to be. So he's so thirsty after walking, because I told you it is a long walk. You don't even want to drive from down to Homestead, and he's got to walk. It's dark. He's tired. He's thirsty. He sees this water fountain. Goes to the water fountain. It don't work. Turns around, sees this Hispanic chick. I immediately knew after their first words to each other, oh, that's a trans woman. I immediately knew. David doesn't know. So all David cares about at this point is getting some water and something to drink. So they throw the first bottle at him and it breaks. Throw the second bottle at him and he catches it. He was like, you ain't even see all these faces on him. And out of the bushes pops out like 15 people. Some of them trans, some of them young gay people who I guess she's taking care of or making sure they're okay. Or, maybe she's a mother of gay children. Anyway, this cab starts to try to, he's introduced to this kid named Starry. And as he's introduced to him, this cab starts to pull up. And so the girl says, you and Starry, it's time for y'all to go home. Because she finds out David is from the Ville. And she says she's been there before. She says, y'all bus is coming. Y'all leave now. Y'all leave now as this cab is coming up. Cab comes up. Some trans woman gets out. And the driver's having back and forth with her. I guess he found out that she had meat in between her legs and didn't like that. Baby, when I tell you these trans women put one more beat down on Mr. Cabman. Listen, they beat him down, honey. Down. They beat him down. Starry and David gets to the bus stop. David tries to get on the bus, doesn't have any money. Starry says, don't worry about it. I got you. I'll pay for you. So they get on the bus. They get back down to the Ville. When they're walking through the neighborhood of the Ville, yeah. And David thanks Starry for helping him, if I recall, but finds out that Starry, because he said, I never seen you before. What you don't stay here. He was like, nah, I'm up here from Tampa. And so he was like, I'm staying with a friend. When they roll up, who's waiting there? Miss Elijah. And Miss Elijah is like, And so David is like, oh, this is the friend you were talking about. And so after that, it looks like what's happening is Miss Elijah's home is a refuge for young gay youths. Because I'm just imagining that perhaps Starry was kicked out of his house perhaps for being gay and he didn't have nowhere to go. And so the Hispanic woman, trans woman, is trying to take care of these gay youths. So David then goes to try to make the drop. Also, let me say this again. Back to the whole light skin, dark skin thing. I felt once again this thing between David and Starry. Starry is light skinned as well. So I kind of feel like there's this, once again, this homoerogenous or homoerotic interaction. I don't know. I might be wrong about that one. So then David goes to make the drop. I think the light-skinned dope boy's name is Teo, I think it is. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. And Teo says, meet me at the wall. On his way to the wall, David sees Sky. And was like, oh, I know you ain't want me to do it. And he's rocking back and forward. And Sky is rocking back and forward. So what that means, he's rocking with nobody. So Teo's looking from afar. And he sees David having this psychological episode. And you can see him like, okay, check mark, I got you. That he's going to use that as ammunition against David later on. David then finally makes it home before his mom, lays in bed and just recapping probably in his mind everything that he had to go through that day. Just the entirety of the fuckery of that day. And so when his mom says, David, I'm home, because she finally gets home and he knew he got home before her, he's thinking in his mind, child, if you only you knew what I had to deal with. And that was the end of the episode. Listen, y'all, I'm glad they gave us this episode. And some people may have issue with it, but I don't. Because what we have is true foundational plot building. They're building the foundation for the plot. I believe that in not just the season, but in the series for this series, we are still in the exposition phase, the beginning phase. And so we're doing foundational groundwork for the plot, soon to move into rising action. So we needed, there's a lot of foundation here that's going to allow us to branch off into a lot of different storylines for this show. So excited about it. I'm glad to see it. And we'll be right back here next week. I'm ready to get in these comments and aga about what your thoughts were, how you feel about it. And we'll be back next week for episode 3. I'll catch y'all later. Thank y'all for coming. Y'all drive safely.